example is actually an idea that one of our customers came to us with a while ago. I thought it was really cool, so I wanted to use it here. So if you're an institution and you have a platform for, sort of author profiles or faculty profiles, you could use the Explorer API to add an updating list of attention of sort of media, policy, or other types of attention to that faculty member's research alongside whatever else is in their profile, so their publications or a bio or that kind of information. So of course, because I have this frog search that I'm always doing, I made a fictional frog researcher who has some really cool publications about amphibians and ecology. And on the left side, I've made an example of a display that you could build using the Explorer API, which shows this person's media and policy impact. So I used blogs, news, and policy sources, and basically this view would create sort of from top to bottom news, policy, and blog mentions to this individual's research, with the most recent mention at the top. And this is basically how you would do that. So first of all, if you use a data integration like Elements or another CRIS system, that individual would have an author ID in your instance of the Explorer, and you could use that to create this search. If you don't have an integration like that, you could create the search in another way. It just sort of depends on what kind of search you want to do. And then the person, basically the identifier that you can see there is based on an institutional data integration. So the Lilliput part is the name of our fictional altmetric instance, but that would be like the name of your instance ID. And then the rest of it is like a person ID coming from the CRIS system itself. And then the way that you would retrieve these mentions would be using the mentions tab or the mentions endpoint. So if you wanted to just basically go to the mentions tab, you could do this in the UI, or you could do it outside of the platform easily as well. Just filter for your favorite sources. So in this case, I've used policy, news, and blogs because those are my favorite sources. And this is what that could look like. So yeah, here's what the URL looks like. You have the mentions endpoint, first of all, which is the endpoint that you're going to use to get that basic information about the titles and the links and everything that actually go to those posts to include in that person's profile. And then your digest being created in the same way. And then the filters, which are the author ID, and then those 3 mention sources. Of course, you could change those to whatever you like. And then, oh, I haven't mentioned this yet, but it's worth noting that the filters are always applied in alphabetical order. You might have noticed that if you were checking out those lists of filters. So in this case, it'd be author ID and then mention sources. And then, yeah, so this is another example of a post in the mentions tab that I showed in the profile previously. So you can see that you have enough information here to create that list. So you have the title of the post. This is a blog post called Editors Picks 2019, and you can see that in the title field. You have the URL linking back to the original post, the date that it was published, so you can draw on that information to create a list like the one that I showed in the example before. And yeah, in general, we do have this data available for each of our mentions, so the link back to the post and that kind of stuff, except in the case of tweets, which we can't contractually display those links and everything like that for tweets, but for most of the other types of posts that we collect, you can actually get the link back to the post, as well as like a snippet of text like this too. So it's quite handy. This is